During the fight with Borsellino, Luffy grew gigantic again. Did anyone else notice how strange this phenomenon was? In my previous video, I explained the theory that the giants might have been on the brink of extinction due to the Ice Age. But there's a question that predates that. How were the giants born in the first place? Many of you might have thought, it's a fantasy world in One Piece, so it's not surprising to have giants. However, in a conversation with director Taniguchi, Oda-sensei made remarks suggesting that the giants seemed as if they didn't originally exist in the world of One Piece. If anyone wants a detailed look into the content of Oda-sensei's conversation, I've made it available for my Patreon members. Please check out this page. I also provide detailed explanations on the nuances of the original Japanese version of One Piece. Now, let me share a significant statement from Oda-sensei during that conversation. I've set a rule that, apart from the devil fruits, there's nothing mysterious in the world of One Piece. In other words, any phenomenon outside of the devil fruits is generally plausible and has a logical explanation. In the Uta world, the Demon King Totemujika has appeared. However, the concept of a Demon King also exists in One Piece. Totemujika seems to adhere to the rules of the devil fruit. Yet these rules might not be revealed even after One Piece concludes. This might be hard to believe for many. There are numerous phenomena in the world of One Piece that don't exist in our world. Luffy aside, Zoro's endurance is beyond human. But the fact remains that the author, Oda-sensei, has stated that all the peculiar phenomena in the world of One Piece originate from the devil fruits. This implies that the diverse races, the mysterious weather and magnetism of the Grand Line, and the existence of Sky Islands can all be explained by the devil fruits. In reality, questions like, how were the devil fruits born? And why is the price for their power being hated by the sea, which is Mother Nature? Haven't been clarified yet. The mysteries of the One Piece world will probably be revealed when the secrets of the devil fruits are unveiled. Oda-sensei's letter during his 2022 break also mentioned, I will depict all the mysteries of the One Piece world that I've been hiding so far. From this, we can speculate that the giants might have been born due to the devil fruit, or perhaps the environmental changes it brought about. With this knowledge in mind, I'd like to propose a hypothesis. The component called pyrobloin, contained in sea stone, might have caused humans to grow into giants. Firstly, the component pyrobloin doesn't exist in our world. There are other elements present in the world of One Piece that don't exist in ours, like neuroma photons. These are unknown particles in the One Piece universe, and anything exposed to this light, be it living beings, liquids, or even gases, loses its physical speed while retaining other energies. The Mero Mero no Mi probably contains a component unique to the One Piece world. I think that the technology using the component emitted from the Mero Mero fruit was responsible for turning Whitebeard's coat and Ace's hat to stone. So, we can infer that components not found in our world are supplied to the One Piece world through the devil fruits. This means that pyrobloin might also be a component extracted from a devil fruit. Let me explain why I believe the transformation into giants is related to pyrobloin. The biggest hint lies in chapter 1092, Nika's transformation into a giant. Personally, I think Nika can transform into a giant under certain conditions. Let's look at the scene in chapter 1045, where Nika transformed. After Luffy escaped from inside Kaido, the air inside him was released, causing him to be propelled into the sky like a balloon. After entering the clouds, he transformed into a giant. The same pattern is observed when he delivers the finishing blow to Kaido. First, he's sent flying into the clouds by Kaido. Immediately after, a giant arm of Luffy emerges from the clouds. At that moment, Luffy himself is outside the cloud. Given that only one arm that was inside the cloud became gigantic, it's logical to think that the cloud is the cause of the enlargement. Unlike when he uses Gear Third, there's no depiction of him inflating his arm with air. He naturally grows upon entering and exiting the clouds. This same sequence is repeated in chapter 1092. Luffy is blasted from the Labo phase down to the lower floor by Borsalino. However, he reappears in the Labo phase in his giant form. Honestly, I was puzzled as to why Oda drew the scene of Luffy being knocked out of the Labo phase. But I believe this scene holds significant meaning. Do you remember what was directly beneath the Labo phase? Clouds. This suggests that Luffy, in his Nika form, might be able to transform into a giant by entering clouds containing pyrobloin. I don't think this is a coincidence. Lilith mentioned something about the clouds of the Labo phase. By perfectly controlling the island's climate, we altered the density of pyrobloin and moisture, recreating the Sky Island's island clouds and sea clouds. This means the clouds supporting Vegapunk's research facility are the same as the Sky Island's clouds. Does anyone remember the characteristics of the Sky Island's clouds? The upper yard in Skypiea was originally part of Jaya. However, compared to the forests of Jaya, the flora and fauna of the Sky Island grew abnormally large. When Zoro questioned this phenomenon, Robin responded, "It's probably due to the components that form the sea clouds and island clouds. The environment enveloping this Sky Island seems to have the power to accelerate the growth of plants and animals at an abnormal rate. This component is likely pyrobloin. So, the pyrobloin in the sea clouds and island clouds might have stimulated Nika's rapid growth into a giant. In fact, the south birds that lived in Jaya's forests were normal-sized, but their descendants, who were sent to the Sky Island with the land 400 years ago, had grown into giants." So, how can we explain Nika's transformation into a giant in Wano? I think Pagaya's statement, Caunus's father, provides the answer. He said, "The component found in sea stone is what we call pyrobloin. It's a keratin particle that, when carried into the sky by a volcano and gains moisture, forms sea clouds and island clouds due to the difference in density." Wano Kuni has a large active volcano. Yes, Fujiyama. Furthermore, Hawkins mentioned, the sea stone spread throughout the world originated in Wano. This suggests that pyrobloin is carried into the sky by the towering Fujiyama in Wano Kuni. Using this pyrobloin, the people of Wano likely produced sea stone. So, I think the reason Luffy transformed into a giant is that he plunged into the clouds above Wano, which likely contain pyrobloin. Luffy's combat methods are versatile, from creating sunglasses to spinning his legs like wheels to run in the air. While there are still many mysteries surrounding Nika, it's possible that when Nika's abilities are activated, he can utilize the nature of pyrobloin to accelerate the growth of plants and animals, allowing for temporary gigantification. By the way, in chapter 1070, Luffy also transformed into a giant during his fight with Lucci. Just like in other scenes before his transformation, Luffy flew somewhere. Then, in his giant form, he suddenly appeared before Lucci. There wasn't a clear depiction of him diving into the clouds, but he might have been near the bottle that generates these clouds. Interestingly, we readers have yet to see the exact moment just before Nika's transformation in giant. It's safe to assume that Oda is intentionally hiding this. However, some might wonder, if the clouds contain pyrobloin from sea stone, wouldn't they negate Luffy's abilities? But since pyrobloin is just one component of sea stone, it doesn't necessarily relate to the sea. As mentioned earlier, both sea clouds and island clouds are formed using pyrobloin. When Luffy submerged in the sea clouds, he drowned as usual. But what about on the island clouds? While merely touching sea stone drains a devil fruit user's power, Luffy, a devil fruit user, could move normally on the island clouds despite their pyrobloin content. This suggests that pyrobloin itself doesn't possess the energy of the sea and doesn't drain a devil fruit user's power. Thus, both sea clouds and sea stone might be formed by processing pyrobloin with another component that emits the energy of the sea. Perhaps pyrobloin not only stimulates the growth of plants and animals, but also plays a role in activating the energy of the sea. By the way, there's an island near Wano called Warland, where the giant tribe lives. As I proposed at the beginning of this video, I believe that the giants might have been born due to the growth-accelerating properties of pyrobloin. The case of Fleavance can provide a significant clue. Over generations, the lifespan of the people of Fleavance gradually decreased. This was because lead accumulated in their bodies. This lead effect was passed on to their children, further shortening their lifespans. Similarly, over generations, people whose bodies continuously accumulated pyrobloin might have gradually grown larger, with lifespans 3 times longer than regular humans. This doesn't just apply to humans. There are giant creatures living around Warland. The kid pirates were also surprised by the size of the fish around Elbaf. Additionally, we know that there are giant trees on the island. Perhaps there's a volcano on Warland, even larger than Fuji Mountain, causing the surrounding flora and fauna to grow so large. Dory and Brogy used the eruption of a volcano as a signal for their duels. This dueling culture might have originated from the presence of a volcano on Elbaf. Let's take a look at the sky above Warland. You can see something that looks like smoke or a shadow. This might be the smoke emitted from a volcano. The ancestors of the giant tribe might have gradually ingested the pyrobloin obtained from here. By the way, there's a pirate from the worst generation that the Straw Hat crew hasn't encountered yet. Urouge. He was in a ruin called Barren Terminal in Sky Island. We don't know when he'll appear, but perhaps they'll meet him in Elbaf. This might also introduce the High West Peak, another way to reach Sky Islands besides the Knockup Stream. Through this massive tree, one might be able to reach there. This would also explain the abundant supply of pyrobloin in Warland. Regarding Urouge's abilities, they haven't been fully revealed, but it seems he can absorb damage and grow larger. I believe that his true identity is a reject dial that ate the human fruit, model masochist. This allows him to joyfully absorb shocks and convert the accumulated power into energy for gigantification. Sorry, I'm just kidding again. Either way, Urouge's ability is to grow larger. His original height is 388 centimeter, but after absorbing damage, he grew to 689 centimeter, similar to a pacifista. San Juan Wolf's ability is also gigantification. Just as Foxy's ability was due to the Noroma photon particle, their abilities might be due to the pyrobloin component enabling gigantification. I've been explaining how pyrobloin might promote gigantification, but there's a big issue. If pyrobloin is being emitted from Fuji Mountain, Why aren't the people of Wano turning into giants? And while the Upper Yard and South Birds in Skypiea grew larger, the people of Skypiea didn't. However, compared to other countries, Wano has an unusually high number of tall individuals. Oden was 382 centimeter tall. The shortest of the red scabbards, Kawamatsu, is still 271 centimeter. As children, Izo and Okiku were about the same height, but Okiku, who stayed in Wano, grew to 287 centimeter, while Izo, who left Wano early on, is 192 centimeter. This suggests they might have unknowingly ingested pyrobloin in Wano, leading to abnormal growth rates. Orochi is also 305 centimeter. Considering not everyone in Wano or Skypiea turned into giants, there might be specific conditions for gigantification, like directly ingesting something containing pyrobloin. So far, I've introduced the hypothesis that the pyrobloin found in Skypiea's clouds and sea stone is responsible for gigantification. Personally, I believe that these clouds will become a crucial theme in One Piece moving forward. In the awakened form of Zoan-type devil fruits, a Hagoromo appears. The Hagoromo is a celestial robe often mentioned in Japanese myths and folktales. It's worn by heavenly maidens, allowing them to fly freely through the sky. However, in One Piece, this robe is depicted as something akin to clouds. Both Kaido and Momonosuke, in their dragon forms, can produce flame clouds. There might be a connection between awakening and clouds. Moreover, clouds have been weaponized. The attack that obliterated the Lulusia kingdom was launched from within a cloud. While the true nature of this shadowy force remains unknown, it's likely related to the ancient weapons, as Ivankov speculated. Additionally, Enel had a device installed in the Maxim, which he forced Gonfal's subordinates to build, that could produce clouds. This led to the complete disappearance of Angel Island. Both attacks, utilizing clouds, generated enough power to destroy entire islands. This suggests that clouds might be essential as an energy source for Nika's gigantification. Perhaps we might even see a scene where Nami generates clouds to facilitate Luffy's gigantification. Nami learned her weather techniques from a certain individual who created an artificial sky island. Hardas. Do you remember where Haradas came from? It's Sky Island Burka, which was destroyed by Enel. This suggests that the technology to create Sky Island might have been preserved in Burka. Enel probably acquired the knowledge and technology to build the Maxim from Burka. Just as Haradas created the Weatheria clouds, the Maxim also produces clouds. And speaking of Burka, it's a name that also exists in the Moon City. There's no doubt that this cloud-based technology is related to lunar technology. This might imply that even the sky islands in the world of One Piece were artificially created, either by the people of the moon or by the Great Kingdom.